Okay, I'm going to be stretching out my client's spinal rotators. I have my client seated with a stable base, and then I asked her to cross her arms over her chest and then tuck them in to her underarms. I will be standing directly behind my client. In this stretch, there's two working hands. The first one's on the scapula of the side that we're stretching, and then the second one's on the upper part of her chest. I'm going to stretch the spinal rotators by moving the spinal rotation up to 80 degrees. And this is also the PNF stretch, so there's three parts to it. The first one's a passive stretch, with the rest in between. The second part is a stretch where the client's going to resist against me stretching out my client. And then the third part is I'm going to stretch my client further to increase her range of motion. And that concludes the spinal rotators. Okay, the second stretch I'm going to do with my client is the shoulder internal rotator stretch. I have my client seated with a stable base and upright posture, and then I asked her to bend her elbow at 90 degrees. I'm going to be kneeling next to her. I'm going to place my stabilizing hand on her upper arm slightly above her elbow to help her keep it close to her body, and then I'm going to place my working hand on her forearm close to the wrist joint, and I'm going to move her shoulder into a shoulder external rotation, which goes for up to 45 degrees. And then I'm just going to repeat it so my client gets a good stretch. Okay, the third stretch I'm going to do with my client is a hip flexor stretch. I have my client lying supine, and then I asked her to flex her knee at 90 degrees. I'm going to be standing next to her to help her with the stretch. I'm going to place my stabilizing hand on the back part of her thigh that is bent so I can push her knee into her chest. And then I'm going to place my working hand on the top of the thigh, slightly above her knee. And this is also my PNF stretch, so we're going to go into a passive stretch for 10 seconds with the rest in between. And then for the next stretch, I'm going to ask her to resist against me. And for the last stretch, I'm going to deepen the stretch a little bit to increase her range of motion. And for this stretch, I'm going to be pressing her leg down into hip extension, and that's for up to 30 degrees. Okay, for the fourth and final stretch with my client, I'm going to be flexing her dorsiflexors. I have her lying supine. I'm going to be standing at her feet so I can help her with the stretch. I'm going to place my stabilizing hand underneath the heel so I'm cupping it. Then my working hand is going to grasp the top of her foot, slightly above where her toes are. And then I'm going to be stretching her dorsiflexors by moving her into plantar flexion for up to 50 degrees. I'm going to repeat this a few times so my client gets a good stretch.